Good evening. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Chuck Davis. He is an author, historian, and the world's foremost authority on the history of our beautiful city of Vancouver. Chuck Davis's 1973 Guide to Vancouver was the first of his 15 books, including the history of the Orpheum Theatre and the now in progress History of Metropolitan Vancouver. Chuck Davis has worked in radio and television for 55 years, and as a radio broadcaster for CBC, he interviewed 2,800 people. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Chuck Davis.
Thank you, Barge. Back in the mid-1970s, I conceived of and edited a book called the Greater Vancouver Book. The Vancouver Book. I described it as an urban almanac. It had just over 500 pages, big pages too, and contained articles on every aspect of the city, articles by dozens of local people, including me. But earlier this year, the cancer returned. I had radiation treatments that stopped the pain, but just this last Tuesday, 2 days ago, my wife Edna and our daughter Stephanie sat with me as an oncologist at the Cancer Agency told us that my cancer was incurable and had reached a stage where it could not be treated with either radiation or chemotherapy. I naturally asked, how long do I have? And although she couldn't be specific, the words weeks and months were in there somewhere. I don't recall hearing the word years. So this ends a note of urgency to what I'm about to tell you. Why am I sharing with you these embarrassing and intimate personal details? Because, as Will Kane said in the movie High Noon, I could use a little help. I need two things. One, I need to find a writer who can finish this book. It's a huge one. It's up to 1994 at the moment. Two, I need to find the money to pay the writer who will finish the book. This has happened so suddenly, the bomb was dropped just 2 days ago, that I don't know how to handle it. One suggestion that was made to me, a law firm, pro bono please, offers to hold in trust any funds raised. The funds would be for the writer who takes on the task of finishing the book. If you go to my website, vancouverhistory.ca, you will find more than 2,000 pages of local history. The writer will have to hack and hew through that massive data, bringing it down to a reasonable size, besides researching the 16 plus years to bring the book up to the present day. I've estimated it will take a year, and I'm suggesting something in the range of around $30,000. I have 16 file drawers full of material at home. One friend who went into my workspace described it as the world's largest gerbil nest. I also have about 400 locally oriented books, all of which I intend to give to the writer, no strings attached. And really important, I have a publisher, Harbor Publishing, Howard White, who's been waiting patiently for some years for this manuscript. You'd never know, listening to my voice, that I used to be a staff announcer at the CBC. I just went through a session of what they call pleural effusion, liquid on the lungs. You may have someone come in once a week to clean up your apartment. I have somebody come in once a week to drain my lung. One of the joys, that was a funny line, folks. One of the joys of writing about the history of this astonishing, lively city is that even after 37 years of work, I'm still finding out new stuff, and I have friends who help me. A week ago today, one of my friends, Andrew Martin, at the History Division of the Vancouver Public Library, a crackerjack researcher, sent me an item he'd come across from the June 11, 1912 edition of the Vancouver Star. Volcanic fumes invade Vancouver. Vancouver yesterday suffered to some extent from a volcanic eruption. It was a long-distance manifestation of nature's anger, for the scene of the disturbance was some 17 or 1,800 miles away among the islands of Alaska. All day yesterday, the sky was overcast and the atmosphere was impregnated with sulfur fumes, which caused considerable inconvenience in breathing to those who were inclined to be asthmatic. I can sympathize with that. It's reported that in some sections of the city, a fine ash collected on doorsteps and roofs to a noticeable extent and drifted in at window casements. Today's heavy rain will probably have the effect of clearing the air and putting an end to the city's emulation of Naples when Vesuvius is having a busy day. Now, they're flashing me, but I'm going to read the rest of this anyway. This was, by the way, more than 60 years. There's about a minute left. This is more than 60 years before Mount St. Helens. The History of Metropolitan Vancouver will be a big, fact-filled, and nicely readable book. In fact, a friend of mine, Tom Arthur, when I said the book was going to be big and fat and full of facts, said, "Hey, just like you." But the book must be finished. I can't do it now, so I need your help and advice. Let me give you my email address. There, yeah, chuckdavis@shaw.ca. It's advice I need now. And let me close with a small personal anecdote. My dad and I arrived in Vancouver from Winnipeg. I was born in Winnipeg in December 1944. When we left Winnipeg, the plows had piled up the snow higher than the height of the train itself. When we arrived in Vancouver, there were flowers growing in front of the CPR station. I turned to my dad. I was 9 years old, and I said, "Dad, I think we've come to the right place." Nothing has happened in the 66 years since to make me change my mind. This beautiful and exciting city, with its glowing future, needs a big book of its history for you and for your kids. I hope you can help. Thank you.
I think what Chuck just gave us is a great example of improvisation. This was not the presentation he was going to give. Chuck, you're a treasure to the city. And I don't think there's anyone more passionate about the history of the city than you. Chuck and I discussed this a little earlier, and if anyone does like to contribute to his city project, they can visit the Global Civic Policy booth, and we will put you in touch with people that can help make that happen.